Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our series of shirim on the Ramchal's beer on the Idir Rabbah Adir BaMarom, and we're continuing with the conversation of how Hakadosh Baruch Hu allows reality to emerge into the playing field in which we encounter it. Meaning to say that Hakadosh Baruch Hu created a deficient thing, and that deficient thing is there for the purpose of us fulfilling that deficient thing, so that we can bring out the fullness of our own selves through our own volitional activity, emerging out of our own selves by way of contact with ourselves through the secret of labor, which is the touching and the not touching of the self at the very same moment, and through that unfolding the process of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the world to fully express itself. And it's specifically in the space of Malchus. Malchus is that deficient place, that Makom of Chisaron that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals in the world in order so that human beings have the capacity to refine things. And then, in addition to that, what we spoke about is that hidden all the way up by Zer Anpin is a secret of the Sheresh HaElyon of Malchus, which is the fulfillment of Malchus itself. That what HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed to us was the deficiency of Malchus, Malchus in its own self, and then the upper spheres of Malchus, Kavyachol, which belong to Malchus themselves, which are hidden away in the space of Zer Anpin, Kolzman, that the world is not operating in the way that it needs to be operating, and our job is to draw it down into the matzah itself. The matzah is the impoverishment of Malchus, it's the impoverishment of the body. It's all of those things that appear to be devoid of inner content because of the externalized shape of themselves. But what the Ramchal is spending so much time being Megala to us over here is that in truth, the fulfillment of that empty space also belongs to that empty space, and that both of those elements are related to the space of Malchus. And we spoke about how in truth, matzah represents the deficiency, that feminine impoverishment, the levana, devoid of the illumination of itself. And we tend to assume that in order to illuminate malchus, in order to illuminate that which is deficient, we need to draw down some fulfillment from elsewhere so that this broken thing can be filled. But what the Ramchal is being masbir to us over and over is that that's the wrong way to look at fixing. Fixing, in truth, is recognizing what is deficient and then moving upwards to the place where the fulfillment rests and drawing it back down into the place of deficiency, revealing the wholeness of deficiency itself. And that we said was the secret of Shakai, that was the secret of the inherent wholeness that exists within Malchus itself. Within Malchus itself, which is going to be the ability for us to draw down the mitzvos. And what we saw after Ramchal in the previous year is that we have these two expressions of Malchus. We have Malchus in its externalized shape, which is like the body, which is like the externalization of reality, which is seemingly devoid of significance, devoid of meaning. And then we have the second stage of Malchus, which comes down and fulfills Malchus itself. And we already said that this Vav that comes down from Zer Anpin to fulfill Malchus is not Zer Anpin being mashpia into Malchus, but rather Zer Anpin giving back to Malchus that which was previously hers. So it's Hamitzvah Hazos, that the fulfillment of those two shlavim of Malchus are all specifically related to Malchus itself. We're not talking about the mitzvah is the Zachar and the Matzah, the impoverishment is the Nekeva, but rather the mitzvah itself, the fulfillment of the impoverishment is the expression of the Nekeva itself. And so we had these two shlavim. We have these two shlavim of the taryag, right? The taryag is the body and its externalization, the 248 limbs and the 600 and 365 sinews, and then we have the 613 mitzvos, which are the content that come to fulfill the externalized shape of things. So again, we are in this dual perspective of there's an empty thing that is devoid of inner content, and we must draw the inner content into that empty thing in order so as to illuminate the empty thing. And even though we know that both are fundamentally connected to one another, nevertheless, there still seems to be a separation between the two of them. And this is what the Ramchal came to be Megala to us in the last year that we had, which was the secret of the Ateres HaYesod, that like anything in holiness, like anything that's rooted in the realm of unity and related to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's process of unfolding in this world, so there is an inherent connection between stages. There is no absolute distinction between stage. There's no stage one and then there's stage two, as if there's this absence and emptiness in the middle that somehow must need to be traversed in order to get to the next stage, but rather every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. We know this from the secret of Malchus, that the Malchus of the lower world becomes the Kesser of the higher world, meaning to say that at the very edge of the higher level rests the secret of the burgeoning potential of the next level. And so too, at the lowest level, the highest part of the lowest level is in truth the lowest part of the higher level. This secret of the interconnectivity of the porous borders that operate between the bottom of the previous stage and the top of the next stage reveal the secret of the inherent unity that exists within all things. And it's there to show us that we're not talking about two separate stages as if there's fundamental differences in reality. We're talking about one unfolding process, a singular process of the perpetual unfolding of unity, which is always growing in the sense that it's always revealing that more and more is contained within that original perspective of unity. This is the ganz Zach of the Ramchal, to show us that the middle, which appears to be devoid of the spiritual illumination and the unity of Hashem as it's expressed in the beginning and as it will be expressed in the end, it's our job to transform that empty space in the middle into the bridge that reveals the connectivity between the beginning and the end, revealing Haya Hoiva V'yiyeh, and how everything that appears to be devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light is simply there waiting for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light to be revealed from the innermost recesses of that thing itself, retroactively revealing that it was never outside of the realm of connectivity. So we see that what the Ramchal is trying to reveal to us is that point of connectivity where stages are revealed not to be two separate stages, one separate from the other, that one grows into the other, but rather a singular expression of unity that expresses itself over various stages of expression, but there's always a hinge point. There's always a liminal point, that lowest point of the previous level, which becomes the highest point of the next level, which is the secret of the interconnectivity between all things and that chiastic experience where the bottom of the top gives birth to the top of the bottom. And this is what the Ramchal told us with regards to the connectivity between these two dargin in Taryag. Like we said, Taryag represents the externalized shape of things and the inner content that comes to fulfill the externalized shape of things. It's the Malchus in her destitution, and it's the original fulfillment of the Malchus, that lost light of the moon, which is now being drawn back down, which we at least at first glance see as two separate things. But then the Ramchal comes along and he explains to us that in truth, already within the edge of the body itself, already within the edge of the externalized Malchus itself, there exists the burgeoning potential of that which is going to come along and fulfill it afterwards, that it already exists within the stage that is devoid of inner content. The inner content is still there, and that's the Yud of Shaddai. That Shaddai is going to be the expression of the Yesod. It's the last edge of the upper spheros, which represents the mitzvos, the Taryag mitzvos that come to be mashlim, the Taryag elements of the body, the fulfillment that comes to fulfill the external shape of reality. And instead of thinking about it as something completely separate, we can look at that Yud, we can look at that tiny drop of the Yud, that Dio, that irreducible point of content that contains the infinite within the infinitesimal, that remains hidden within the Yesod, and that's going to be the emergence of all of the Taryag mitzvahs afterwards. And the Ramchal went on to say that in truth, the body itself can be referred to as a shade. It could be referred to as something that is devoid of the animating content of what is being expressed in it. It appears to be a body without a neshama. It appears to be a kli without an or. But when left on its own, that shin daled represents the concealment. It represents the emptiness of malchus. But when the yud, that tiny drop, the ateres yesod, which is the wholeness that is already contained within the impoverishment itself, that nekuda pnimis, that's niskala specifically through an act of cutting that reveals the connectivity that comes about by way of refinement, human activity, the secret of bris milah. So that's going to be the gilui of the yud, and that's going to be mashlim Hashem Shaddai, and that's going to be the yichud of the taryag elements of the body in their externalization, and the taryag mitzvos, which are coming to fulfill the body in its externalization, revealing the unity between Zer Anpin and Nukva. And the Ramchal is going to continue and going through various gematrias and focusing on this yud, focusing on this element of yesod. And because there's a lot here that myself I don't understand, and parts that are not necessarily going to be as understandable to those without a background in some of these ideas, so we're going to move a little bit quicker through this next page or so to bring us to the next shlav of Adir BaMarom be'ezras Hashem. So we are now on Daf Yud Aleph in the Rav Shariki Machon Haramchal edition of Adir BaMarom. Mitzvos harishonos hanimshachos b'derech ikar min hayud hazois heimen nekroim oisios. And the essential mitzvos that emerge from this yud, that point of potentiality of fulfillment that exists within the destitution of Malchus itself, the Ateres Yesod, which contains everything within it, the emergence of that yud, which is going to take the shade and transform it into Shaddai, are going to be referred to as osos, signs. These specific types of mitzvos that reflect, they come to represent, and they come to signify something that stands behind them. V'soid zeh masha amru Chazal, and this is the secret of what Chazal have said. Hashem tzvakos, the name Hashem Hashem Tzavakos is a nutrikon. It can be read differently as Oisu B'Tzeva Shalo, that it's a sign within the army, within the legions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that these mitzvos are signs, they're signposts along the way that represent something that stands behind them. And I'm going to explain the matter clearly to you. So now we're going back. We're going back to what the Ramchal began with, that the origination and the emergence of Zun, of Zer Anpin and Nukva, these two stages of Taryag that we're dealing with in this realm of destitution, in the space that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to engage with free will, that comes from the womb of Bina. That emerges from Bina, and we said that because it comes from the womb of Bina, that ultimately it represents the paradoxical notion of expression and repression, of extension and withholding, of chesed and gevura, of the unfolding process and the withholding that gives birth to the shape of things, thereby giving each and everything its own particular shape, its own particular identity, separating it from other things. This comes from El Shaddai, which is the secret of the world of Bria, the world of Bina, the womb of Bina. That the El was the chesed, it was the element of the expression towards growth, and the Shaddai is the element of constriction, and both of them operate together to give birth to reality. We explained that it specifically in the Yesod of Ima, the foundation of the mother that emerges from Bina itself, that gives birth to the formation of Zer Anpin and Nukva. But afterwards, and the Ramchal is hinting something here, that any process that we see in the entire system of the Arizal and the unfolding processes of the worlds, what we're dealing with are a very simple set of rules that are reacting themselves over and over and over. It is a system of laws and regulations of expression and containment of lights and vessels, of the process of relationship, of Ibor Yenika and Moichin, of Achorayim, and then Panim El Panim, and then Etzem. All of the different stages are expressed on each and every level. Now, you might see them operating at the lowest level, but one can extrapolate to one degree or another, as the Arizal tells us in Eitz Chaim, even in the highest places, you can extrapolate these halachos to those levels, except that on the higher level, they're more and more refined. So what is more kind of thickened down here gets refined as we ascend upwards in accordance with the gradations that we're speaking about, but the shape and the order and the framework and the systematicity of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing himself doesn't shift. The only thing that shifts is the congealment of it. And what goes down here and is seen as a congealed system of actual mechanisms is revealed up there to be the potential towards a system that still maintains a certain expression of systematicity, that the Gvul is always refining itself as we go from below to above, and always congealing as it goes from above to below. And so what the Ramchal is saying is that the formation of Zer Anpin and Nukva, which we described took place in the Yesod of Ima, which is what takes place in Bina, we're also going to have a process of this very same diminution, this very same Tzimtzum process, this very same emergence out of the secret of Shaddai, out of the secret of Sha'amar La'olamodai, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu radically revealing the deepest secret of all, which is how there can be limitation whatsoever if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is unlimited. So we're going to see the perpetual reestablishment of limitation from one level to another. And what the Ramchal is saying, we spoke about El Shaddai by Ima, in the womb of Ima, va'achar kach, but now what we're looking at, Shem Zem Mispashet Bezah, this name of Kel Shakai that was operant in the place of Bina has now descended downwards into the next lower parts of which is Zer Anpin and Malchus, which are going to be the Zun, which are going to be the places that we have engagement with. V'nichlal b'yesod shaloi gamkein, and this light of the yesod of Ima, the El Shaddai, goes and it expresses itself at the bottom of the sphere, the parts of Zer Anpin, which is the yesod shalo, which is the secret of the Shem of Shaddai. Amnan lefi hashade shel Shaddai, but like we said, this Nakuda of Shaddai, this Nakuda of the expression that Zer Anpin is going to reveal down below to Malchus, just as the El Shaddai of Bina revealed down below to Zer Anpin, we see that there's two elements here. There's the shade of Shaddai, which we said is Na'asim Kol Hasviros B'Bechinas Eloikim. That's where everything is still going to be operant in a place of constriction prior to the emergence of the fulfillment of meaning. And only when that yud that comes and adds to Shaddai, which then allows the upper taryag to be mislabish and the lower taryag, revealing the inner content of the body itself. So at that point, we transform from Eloikim into Havayos. Eloikim represents constriction, it represents dinim, it represents resistance, it represents concealment, and Havayos represent the opposite of that, revelation, it represents containment, it represents expression, it represents the connectivity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing. And what we're seeing here is, just as the Ramchal was revealing to us before, these are not two separate fundamental realities, but rather they are two parts of a singular reality. The same way that Shaddai is Shade and Yud, which is the concealment of the body in its isolation and the fulfillment of the body with that innermost point of the Ataras Yesod, which becomes the point of transmission where the heavens empty out into the Aretz itself, where the Yichud of Yesod is Kol Bashamayim of Aretz, the ability to connect that which is above and below. So we see here also that the transition from Elohim to Havayos is also very similar to the transition from the Shade to Shaddai. All a person has to do is add a Yud in order to illuminate the concealment, because we would typically think that if there's concealment, concealment needs to be removed in order so that revelation can emerge in its place. That Elohim needs to be removed so that Havaya could emerge. But what we're seeing here is that in truth, Elohim is just Havaya waiting for that Yud to be revealed. And when that Yud is revealed, the Elohim is transformed into Havaya in the secret of Hashem Hu HaElohim. V'zehu b'chinas Elohim v'Havaya sheniskar b'masa bereshis. And these two elements, as we see in the lower parts of Zer Anpin, just as we saw in the El Shaddai of Bina, we see here also that the shade of the Shaddai, of the Yesod of Zer Anpin, is Elohim. It's the expression of Dinim. It's the expression of an empty reality devoid of content. And only afterwards that Yud comes along, and it fulfills it and it transforms it into a place of Havaya. And this is the aspect of the two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which are perpetually used in the creation of the world. Kirak kach nasim kol ha-sfiros. This is the only way that the spheros are going to emerge. It's specifically in the balancing act between these two stages. O bebechinas Elohim, o bebechinas Havaya. It's either going to be operating in a perspective of concealment, which is the shade devoid of the Yud, which is prior to the expression of fulfillment within the empty vessels of reality, or it's going to be the fulfillment of the Shem Havaya, which is when the inner content infuses the externalized vessel to reveal the inherent content and the moon's lost light, which belongs to Malchus itself. What causes this process of Shaddai by the Yesod of Zer Anpin? In truth, it's the El Shaddai which operates by the Yesod of Bina, because the son is expressive of the mother. The son is expressive of the mother, and Zer Anpin is emergent out of Bina. And even though we very often say that Bina and Malchus are similar to one another because Bina represents the first instantiation of Nekeva and the feminine quality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol with the Hey Ilah, and Malchus represents the lower Hey, so we would seemingly think that there's a connection between the mother and the daughter, as we're going to see by Megillas Rus, and that there's going to be a connection between the father and the son, which is going to be Chachma and Zer Anpin. That's only Bechitzonius, that's only externalized, where we see the external relationship based on their modes of functioning. But in truth, as the Rayam and Hamna points out, and the Rebbe makes a big asik out of over and over, and the Balasula makes a big asik out of, is the secret that on a pneumiastic level, the relationship is inverted. Externally, the father and the son are unified, the Yud and the Vav are unified, and the mother and the daughter, the Hey and the Hey, are unified. But the pneumius, obviously, brata, that Chachma is the shirish of Malchus, and the Abba is the shirish of Malchus, because Bittel Amiti and the Bittel B'mitzias of Chachma can only be Neskala, specifically in Malchus, and Koinin Aretz Betvuna, that Aretz, which is their Anpin, is going to develop its situatedness and its presence through Bina itself, meaning to say that there's an inherent relationship between Bina and Zer Anpin, which we're seeing here, that the limitation process of the Shaddai and the unity between the Shade and the Yud, which is taking place by the level of the Yesod of Zer Anpin, and the Ataras Yesod is also taking place in that same place in Bina. Ein inyan kirak naasim kol sfiros of b'chinas Elohim and b'chinas Havaya. Umasha goyrim lazeh, and what causes this? Dahainu El Shaddai, the fact that El Shaddai by Bina causes this process. Ein inyan lahaskiro kihu be'ima. We don't talk about it explicitly necessarily because Ima and Bina is still considered a makif. It's still the interiorization where things are beginning to emerge prior to actual emergence. Actual emergence only begins at the unfolding of Zer Anpin and Nukva out of Bina, which is why Bina is such a transitionary place representing the edge of the upper level and the beginning of the lower level, which is why it's the most fundamental place. It brings us back up to Chachma. Umasa Bereshis ubezun. But when it comes to Masa Bereshis, which is a Maisa, which is a revealed thing, all we have access to is Zer Anpin and Nukva, which is going to be the secret of Shaddai as opposed to the El Shaddai of Bina. V'hinei zeh sod, and this is the secret of Mi Ya'ale Lanu Hashemayma. This is the secret of the pasuk in Devarim Lamed Yud Beis, which says, who is going to ascend upwards to us, who is going to help us ascend upwards to the sky. Sharushe Tevos Mila, meaning the Roshe Tevos of Mi Ya'ale Lanu Hashemayma, the ability to transform below to above and to draw down above to below, It's going to be Rosh Tevos Mila, which is going to be the secret of the Atar Sabris, the Sofe Tevos Havaya, and Sofe Tevos Havaya, because that's what we're accessing here. We're accessing the Mila and the secret of Havaya, which is the Zer Anpin and Nukva. But what the Ramchal doesn't point out over here is we can say also that the Miya Lenu Hashemayma, Adarabba, we shouldn't point something out that the Ramchal is not pointing out, but we can say that Miya Lenu Hashemayma, Mi is the secret of Bina, Miya Lenu Hashemayma, that this secret of the Rosh Tevos of Mila and the Sofe Tevos of Havaya, which is the secret of the Shaddai and the Shade and the Yud and the interconnection between Zer Anpin and Malchus, the empty space of being and the fulfillment of being itself, which reveals the inherent fullness of being itself, is going to be emergent from Bina, as the Ramchal is saying. Kirak bebechinas Yud Zos. It's specifically with the connection of the Yud to the Shin Dalid, which is going to transform it into Shaddai, which is the Yisoid of Zer Anpin, Meir Shem Havaya Baruch Hu B'Sfiros. It's only through this fulfillment of Mila and this Ikr Nakuda of the Yud, which is connected to the Shin Dalid, which is going to reveal Hashem's process in reality, specifically by way of the Shem Havaya and not the Shem Elohim. L'chem gan hakatan shenoiled me Yisrael. So too, even a young child who's born in Klal Yisrael, Ein Hashem Hazeh Meir Alav Ella Achar Shenimel. The name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the name of Havaya, which is revealed on the guf of the individual, is only neskala through the act of bris milah, through the cutting that reveals, through the act of incision and the circumcision that reveals that which was hidden in order so that it could unfold in its full potential. Orla Oila Shin. That's why the Orla, which is prior to the emergence of the Yud, is the gematria of Shin, which is the side of Elohim the Yud. And when you look at Elohim, spelled out Aleph Lamed Pei, Lamed Lamed Mem Dalid, Hey Yud, Yud Vav Dalid, Mem Mem, when you spell out that Hey with a Yud, as we do by the Shem Havayos as well, it's going to be the gematria of Orla. Orla is Elohim, like we said. It's that Nakuda of Malchus prior to the expression of the Yud, which gives birth to that Ataras Yesod, which is what draws down that Shlav of mitzvos, that higher Taryag to be Mashlim, the lower Taryag. So before then, all we have is Elohim, which is the secret of Orla, and the Hey Osios Sheba Kibechinas Elohim Heim Hadavarim, because Elohim was the way things were functioning prior to the emergence of the bris, which is also the secret of the shade prior to the connectivity of the yud of Shaddai, which is also the secret of the taryag of the guf prior to the emergence of the taryag mitzvos. V'hinei shem zeh El Shaddai, this name that we see by Bina, this place of formation, mispashet bezah, it expresses itself downwards in Zer Anpin, Keniz El, like we explained, except now it's only going to be the Shem Shakai. But we're going to see that this El, where does this El go? What happens to the Kale, that loving kindness that was expressed in the womb of Bina prior to the emergence into Zun? Now we see that we have Shakai, but what happened to the Kale? So Zakter Ramchal, the Kale, the place of Chesed is mispashet into the 5 spheros that make up the parts of Zer Anpin, which is Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, and Hoid. Ki halamid mispashet b'chagas, and the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov make a big asek out of this, that the Lamed, each of the spheros of Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes contains their own subset of 10 spheros, like we're seeing in Sfiras HaOmer now, the Chesed Shebechesed, Gvur Shebechesed, Tiferes Shebechesed, v'chulei. So you have the Lamed, you have the 10 of the first 3 spheros, which are going to be Chesed, Gvur, and Tiferes, which are going to be expressive of the Lamed of the Shem Kale, and the Aleph is going to be Mispashet, the Netzach and Hoid, which is the secret of Shehem Shnei Chatzi Ela Aleph Shel Tzvaos, that Netzach and Hod are 2 parts of the same unity, which is surprising that the Aleph, which is higher than the Lamed, would be expressed at the lower place, which is Netzach and Hod, but the Lamed, which is the Lamed, which is lower, is expressed in the higher place of Chesed, Gvur, and Tiferes. But in truth, Netzach and Hod are the place of connectivity and the place of transition, and that's why we might see that the Aleph is being expressed here. Kemivur b'makom acher. Acher kach zok the Ramchal miskala hayisoid b'soid Shaddai, and then the yisoid itself is niskala, and the secret of Shakai Sokel is expressed in Chesed, Gvur, and Tiferes, Netzach and Hoid, and the Shem Shakai is expressed in the yisod, with the Shin Dalid being the yisoid when it's still in a state of Orla, when it's the Shem Es Elohim, and then through the secret of Bris Milah, where Magala the Yud, which is the Atar Sabris, which transforms the Elohim of the Orla into the secret of Havaya and the secret of Mi Alenu Hashemayma, beside Hatziur v'Hachoisem Hazeh, in the secret of this formation, this place that is going to give shape to the externalization of reality with the fulfillment of the mitzvos. Ki be'emes hayisoid kol hataras hazois, because the yisoid contains this ataras beside hasfiros beside apartzov, because in truth, when we're talking about this Yud of Yisoid, which is going to be Makusha to Malchus, we're talking about the inherent connectivity that gives birth to the Sphirus and the Partsufim, revealing how there's formation, which appears to be devoid of content, and then at the very edge of that process, there's an emergence of content. V'gam solf kol Sphira. U'lechein boi nemar, ani El Shaddai, ani hu she'amarti lo olam odai. This secret of the Yisoid, this secret of the Nakuda that connects the fulfillment with that which appears to be destitute, that secret of the Gilui that comes about by way of concealment, this is what creates formation. This is the limit point. This is the edge of things. This is the siyuma de gufa, the edge of the body, which is the secret of sha'omer lo olam odai. This is the limit point at which a person can extend themselves. Kiba seitz hayisoid hari nishla mispashta saor, because it's specifically in the emergence of the yesod, in the or tov, in the or haganuz, and tzaddik yesod olam, in this secret of the or haganuz befuma da'ama, that secret of letakin olam b'malchut shaddai, that secret of tikkun, that secret of the rectification and the tikkun abris. That is where the unfolding of Yesod is going to be expressed. V'hashade shabo, but the shade, which is that point of content devoid of fulfillment, keneged hakel shezacharnu, it corresponds to that kel. Kisoy de gamkein chesed gvur tferes netzachoid, because the secret of kel, like we just said, is going to be the secret of netzach, hoid, and chesed gvura and teferes, because the lamed is going to be the chagas and the Yud, the Aleph is going to be Netzach Hoid, and the Shin. So we see the same thing in Shaddai. We see the same exact relationship in Shaddai. That Shaddai, the Shin is the aspect of Chagas, Dalet is the aspect of Netzach and Hod, She'akol B'soid Vavin, because it's made out of Vavs, because the Dalet is two Vavs, and Netzach and Hod are connectivity points. They're the points of the Vave HaAmudim, and the Yud is the Bechina of the Yisoid Atzmo. So we see that the same relationship that we saw in El Shaddai, where that Kale, the Lamed, represented the Chesed Gvur and Teferes of that place of Bina, and the Aleph represented the Netzach and Hoid of that place in Bina, and the Shakai represented the Yisoid of that place in Bina, so too in the Hispashtus of that shame from Lamala Lamata, we also see this full expression in the world of Zah as well, where the kale is going to correspond to the chesed gvura and teferes of the shin and the dalid of the shem shakai, which is the yesod of zah, and the secret of the shin, which is the bechina of chagas, the dalid, which is the bechina of netzach and hoid, and the secret of the sod of the bavim, and the yud, which is the aspect of the yesod itself. But in truth, ultimately, the ikar nekuda here is that the yud represents the malchus of yesod, which is niskala over there, even prior to its connectivity with yesod, which is the atar sabris. This is because we have already explained to you that the spheros appear in the framework of the individual, and the individual is built in the framework of the spheros, because they are formed in a formation, they are formed in an image. All of what the Ramchal is describing now is the formation and images and the process of production and the systematicity of things. This is expressed in Malchus. Malchus is always going to be the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu owns the world. That what we find now is that all of the upper spheros, the shin, the dalid, and even the yud, which is the ater sabris, all of these are the expressive elements that were hidden up by Zer Anpin prior to be revealed down in Malchus itself, like we said, and that's going to be where the formation is going to take shape, because Malchus is the formation of all of this. L'chein shirim b'soid hay, their measure is hay, which is the secret of chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach, and hoid, which is the secret of the shin dalid, which is hay vavin, because Shin has three vavs and Dalet has two vavs, and that's going to be five vavs. Acha Atara is the secret of Malchus, Lafi Bechinas HaYesod, Shehusoid HaMitzvah. And like we said, the secret of Atar Sabris is the secret of the quality of the Taryag mitzvos that are expressed even prior to the fulfillment of Malchus itself, which then get drawn down to fulfill Malchus, which is the secret of the mitzvah, that we have the matzah, which is devoid, which is Malchus B'fnei Atzmo, and then we draw down this light of the Atar Sabris, which is koilel all of the midos lamala down into Malchus itself, which is going to be mashlamed, and then it's referred to mitzvah. We draw the vav into matzah, but it's not the zer anpin of mitzvah, but rather it's a mitzvah hazos. It's the fulfillment of Malchus itself. Sharishainahu bechinas matzah. Malchus and her destitution is matzah, like we said. Vahavein hetiv. V'nimsa lefizeh. It turns out, in accordance to all of this, when it comes to all of the upper spheros, when it comes to all of the expressivity above, when it comes to all of the transition of the shin and the dalet and the hey vavs of the chesed, gvur, teferes, netzachoid, of the parts of zer anpin in inclusion with the yesod, all of that is going to be yud, hey, vav. It's going to be the first three shlavim of the shem havaya, atara beside ha hey ha'achrona, and it's going to be the atar sabris, which is going to be the secret of the hey achrona, because that's the shorish of malchus. behigalis zois atara nigla behigalis zois atara v'nigla shem havaya. And when this Atara is revealed and the Shem Havaya is Muslim, as Hakel Shahaya Mitchaber Im Shaddai Mitchaber Im Hashem. And what happens then is that it's incredible because what the Ramchal is being masbir is why is it Bina is Kel Shakai, Bina is Kel Shakai, but Zer Anpin is Kel Havaya. Kel Havaya, the world of Bria, which is the world of Bina, is Kel Shakai, and the world of Yitzir, which is the world of Zer Anpin, is Kel Havaya, and the world of Malchus, which is the world of Olam Ha'asiyah, is Kel Adnus. Those three shemos. So the Ramchal is being masbir here. Why is it that the emergence from the world of Bina, which is Kel Shakai, emerges into the formation process of the parts of Zer Anpin in the secret of Kel Havaya? And what the Ramchal is being masbir here is as follows: Nimsa lefizek kol sfiros em bechinas yud hey vav ateres hasoid hu behei ha'achrena. V'hine behagalus zois ha'atara. When this atara is revealed, v'nigla shem havaya, this kale that was connected to Shakai originally in the space of Bina mitchaber im havaya. Now that kale connects with havaya, but isim gam kein kale havaya, which is the shirish of Olam HaYitzira, which is the shirish of Zer Anpin. And that's why we find these two names in the Torah, Kel Shakai and Kel Havaya. Like we see Kel Havaya v'ya'ir lanu, that the Kel Havaya will reveal itself and illuminate the world. If you connect this process of formation from the space of Bina into the space of Zer Anpin as well as the hay, which is found hidden at the Atara, Hare HaKol Kaminyan Os. All of it is revealed in the secret of an Os. This is the Gushpanka. This is the stamp. This is the point of formation that is going to bear its mark on every expression later on. This is the Nakuda of the Os. This is Ois Hili Ol Me'ad. This is the sign that represents where things come from. The sign on the body, the sign in time, the sign in the mind, the sign in all things, which signify what we're trying to reach back to. This is why the Yesod is referred to as Ois Bris Kodesh, Kihu Ois B'Bechinasu, because it's a sign in this element. In addition to being the formation and the original point where all of those Taryag mitzvahs are going to be revealed, it's also its own mitzvah. V'gam min ha'taryag evarim, and it's also connected to the 613 limbs. V'tuliyim ba taryag acherim shu hashlamas ha'taryag acherim. So what the Ramchal has been masbir over here is that yud that we spoke about, that ataras habris, which is the potential towards fulfillment prior to the emergence of that fulfillment within Malchus itself. But what we're seeing is that there's a fulfillment already operant within Yesod itself, which is the ataras Yesod, which can be considered the element of Malchus as it exists within the realm of Yesod prior to its expression into Malchus itself. Let's go weiter a little bit because we're going to continue with this paragraph, which is still going to be on the same concept, because the Ramchal now, and the Ramchal spent a lot of time being engaged in the inyan of Malachim, and the world of Yetzirah is really where we begin to encounter the realm of celestial forces and the fact that there's spiritual zachin, there's ruchniistic zachin that the tzaddikim have access to that also operate in accordance with the systematicity, that all of it is there to be revealed for the sake of man so that human beings can ultimately bring about the kavod shemayim from lamala, from lamata lamala. And the whole tachlis of Matan Torah is to reveal the maila, the benefit and the elevation and the status that a human being has over and above a malach. So we're going to see how this same process takes place Eitzel the Malachim. And for the Ramchal who had a magid, who had a connection to the deep connectivity of the Malachim, so this is a deeply significant thing. Zak the Ramchal, and this is on Daf Yud Beis, V'nei kol tzva oz shel Malachim briyasam al yedei Malchus. All of the legions, all of the strength, all of the power of the Malachim and the celestial forces come about and they emerge through Malchus itself. It's all through HaKadosh Baruch Hu's expression in Malchus. Ki kol habrios b'soidoi nivru shehi ha'maisa kiyadua. Malchus is all that we have access to. Malchus is what we are able to grasp. We see what the Ramchal has been describing as the emergence of everything into Malchus, but what the Ramchal is reminding us of is that all we have access to is Malchus, and everything is always emergent out of Malchus. Acha emasu, but in truth, shakol habrios b'sod ha'osios nivru. All of reality is in truth contained and created in the secret of the osios, the chaf space osios haTorah, rooted all the way back in the Kabbalah of Maharisarug and the Olam HaMalbush, how everything in this world is composed of tzirufei osios, and each and everything is composed and comprised of the essential letters that give shape to the very foundation and formation of itself. And these osios are emergent from Malchus themselves. Acha malachim, but what about malachim? Nimsa lehem giloy anhaga b'soid ha'osios ha'elu. The malachim are created and they find direction in terms of how they're going to act in accordance with the osios that are in their names. Ki ha'ois shemimenu yatsa me'ira al roishim u'mitznoi. Because the letter that is the source of that malach, the source of that spiritual force, is illuminated on top and shining on top of that force. Ulafi ha'hitznoitzasutza, and as a result of that hitznoitzasutz, as a result of that sparking and shining of that letter, kachim misnahagim, that is going to be the extension of that letter strength, which is going to be expressed in the secret of the malach. Hine behiskalus zois ha'ois mima'al l'roisham, when this os from which the malach emerges and where it gains its power from emerges on top of its head, nims now it is concealed in a concealment of light, in a levush of noiga, in a levush of or, in a katniss or, not with an ayin but with an aleph, in the secret of Rabbi Meir, in the secret of the ear of Tiveria, that Rashbi was able to be matayir ear Tiveria to refine all of these things. It's a garment that shines. And it's specifically here with all of the osios of the malachim, which are all the formation processes that emerge out of Yisod and into Malchus. All of them are going to emerge in different forms of connections. The Ramchal is not afraid of expressing the ever-present nature of all things and really the impossibility of pinning down exactly what it is that is happening because of the myriad possibilities that exist in each and every moment, as we're going to see when he discusses the doubts associated with Atik and the secret of the Sveikos, the Reishel Los Yada. But over here we see that everything operates in many, many ksharim. This letter connects with all the other letters. And each malach and each force and each expression in this world unfolds through its particular letter, emerging into all of its various relationships in order to carry out its goal. But the emergence of all of these things, the creation of all of these things, is the secret of the Malchus, which is the secret of Seif Masab Malshava Tfila. It's a secret that the Malchus is the Maisa. When there's a Maisa, it's Malchus. Malchus is the revelation. Malchus is the emergence of something into an actual form. But the sparking of that light above us is the light of the Yesod. Again, so what the Ramchal is being masbir is that this dual relationship that we have between the Yesod and Malchus, between the potential towards formation and fulfillment, and that emergence of that potential towards fulfillment into the edge of that stage prior to actual fulfillment, which is the Ataras HaYesod, and then transferring down into Malchus, where it's going to be mashlim, the previous Taryag. This same process is taking place by the Malachim. The Malachim have an ois. The Malachim are created in the guise of Malchus, but that ois is not going to express itself until it's connected to the Hitznoitzis and all of the Sirufim of the Osios, which is the Koyach that it gets from Yesod. So we see again the same relationship between Yesod being Meir to Malchus, that which remains within Yesod in the Atar Sabris, and that's the Hainu, the Yud Shel Shaddai. V'sod zehu ha-nefesh v'aruach. And this is the secret of the nefesh and the ruach. This secret of the formation between the concealed, empty shape of things and the emergence of fulfillment and meaning that exists at the edge of that thing, and the secret of the Atar Sabris and the Yesod and Malchus is the secret of the Nefesh and the Ruach, because we know that there's 5 parts Sufim that operate within a human being. There's Keser, Chachma, Bina, Zer, Anpin, and Malchus, and that corresponds to the 5 Chalakim of the Nefesh, which is Nar and Chai. That Keser corresponds to the Yechida, and Chachma corresponds to the Chaya, and Bina corresponds to the Neshama, and Zer Anpin corresponds to the Ruach, which is this Yud, which is the Atar Sabris, and Malchus corresponds to Nefesh, which is the body. Nefesh yesh b'chof beis oisios v'chein haruach. Just like we said, the body has a taryag, and so too the Yesod is a taryag. So too we're seeing with the Malachim that there's the 22 letters down here below which are devoid of content, and the 22 letters above which fulfill them through movement, and that's the secret of the Ruach. That's the secret of Zer Anpin and Nukva. Ela shaha nefesh oimedes kvua ki isha hayosheves babesa. But the letters of Malchus in its feminine quality, in its privation, in its concealment, in its modesty, in its static nature, it doesn't move. But specifically by the Ruach, specifically by the Atar Sabris, we see the Hitznoisis of the Osios and the emergence of the shifting and the turning that reveals the fulfillment of that thing that appears to be devoid. And that's what it means when we say that the Malachim emerge from the Osios through the aspect of Malchus, but nevertheless, lo hayu ha'oiseis mitzneitzim alayim. Those letters were not moving, and therefore those malachim did not have any active principle to engage in. It's specifically from the Yesoid that they begin to shift and change. And it's specifically from there that the emergence of all of these principles are going to emerge. Be'ezras Hashem, I know that this was less than clear in terms of the essence and the depth of each of these ideas. But again, like the Ramchal said, we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to move smoothly through the Sefer. We're going to have one more shir where we're still connected to the shade and the Shaddai and the Kel Shakai and the formation. Then we're going to go into the next shlav of Adir BaMarom, where the Ramchal, Schus Yagan Aleinu, is going to bring us in contact with the sweet illumination of the book of the Zohar HaKadosh, with the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, with the light of Tiberia, with the light of Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, and Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to be mamshech into the depths of the Zohar HaKadosh through the secret of Ramchal's Beer, Be'ezras Hashem.